Good morning. My name is Dan Molina, and I am speaking this morning on behalf of Texas Equisearch and an extraordinary group of families who you'll be meeting shortly. As a matter of fact, this very minute, let's have all of the family members, if you would, anybody who is related to the crew of the Nina, come up here and stand behind me, if you would, please. These people and the ones they love who set sail from New Zealand and have not been heard from since July are the people we're doing this for. When people go missing, very dedicated people go out to search for them. They search until they are convinced that there is no reason to carry on with the search. And that is what happened off the shores of New Zealand in the case of the marvelous classic yacht, the Nina, with its 7 crew members on board. They concluded that the time had come, that there was no justifiable reason for them to expend the resources and the time to carry on. And we certainly respect what they did and what they said, and we thank them for what they did. On the other hand, there are things that they did not perhaps take into consideration that perhaps we can work with them to better realize. And those things include technology, the application of technology, and they include the spirit of these people up here, as well as the spirit of the crew members on board. This is an extraordinary group, and I would say that they represent the embodiment of the lines written so long ago by Tennyson, which said in his poem Ulysses, "That which we are, one of equal temper and heroic heart, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield." With that, I would like to introduce to you now a man who has been the coordinator of this search, who I've been proud to call my friend for the last several years. He's an oil man, a legendary oil man, so named by the Petroleum History Institute. He has set a record, I think, for endurance over the last several weeks. His name is Ralph Baird.
Yeah, a legendary oil man. That's in Pennsylvania. So, Titusville, Pennsylvania. So, it's where the first oil well was drilled. Edwin L. Drake. It was a few years ago. It's before my time. It wasn't before Lewis's time. The 7 crew on the Nina are not dead. John Kerry and the Department of State have said that they are. So I have a strong message here. And what I want you to do right now, how many people in the audience have cell phones? Raise your hands. I want every one of you to pick up your cell phone, and I want you to dial this number right now. Every one of you. How many family members have cell phones? Do you have them with you? No. That's fair. Too late. Okay, I want you to dial this number now. and I'll read it for those of you who are a little nearsighted. It's 202-647-4000. That's the number for the Department of State. As soon as you dial that number, punch 4. That'll get you an operator. When you get the operator, ask her to talk to the John Kerry, Senator for the Secretary of State John Kerry's comment line. And she'll put you through to the comment line. You'll punch 1. When you punch 1, you can leave a message on the comment line. We need to vote. We need to let the Department of State know that we believe that these 7 crew members are alive. That's what I've spent the last 6 weeks doing. I'm convinced of that. There is absolutely no evidence otherwise. There has been no evidence otherwise. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Texas EquiSearch. I joined Texas EquiSearch in 2005 to help look for Natalie Holloway offshore Aruba because her uncle called and asked for some help. She didn't return home with her high school class from Aruba after being down there for Memorial Day weekend in 2005. Since that time, I've had so much respect for this organization, the work that they do, that I've stayed and worked with them for 8 years. That's me. We all have that same example to talk about. Every one of our members, every one of our volunteers, there's 650 of us. The families, the 5 families contacted us because the New Zealand Rescue Coordination Center gave up. They stopped searching. A lot of these searches are administrative decisions. They may not be based on fact. They just may be administrative decisions. The effective days that they actually searched were 2. They're broadcasting that they searched more than that, but they spent 2 days. We've spent a lot more than 2 days with private funds that we've gotten through donations. This isn't the way it should be done. Private resources shouldn't be taking the place of a government service, which is search and rescue. But what we've learned and what we're transmitting to all search and rescue that work in the marine environment particularly is to make use of resources that they're not currently making use of. And that's part of what we're doing here. The New Zealand government asked for help of the United States. They asked for help. The help they asked for was to task satellites. They said that they had contacted the NGA, which is the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Foreign governments can contact this group. In this case, they contacted them through the New Zealand Embassy in Auckland, Australia. There was no continued contact with the NGA. There wasn't any tasking assigned. They asked for this help early on because they believed that the 7 on the crew were alive and they needed help. What we've done is circumvented some of that. We're asking the Department of State to help us. They're stopping us from accessing satellites. We went to private corporations, and we found a way to access satellites without going through normal government channels. And that was through TomNod. And you've all heard about TomNod. You've all visited the site. It's a tremendous activity. The New Zealanders, the Kiwis, are so anxious to work with Americans. They love Americans. They love life. They believe that these 7 on the crew are alive when you talk to them. When I talk to the Kiwis and I talk to the Australians, the Aussies, that's what they believe. When I talk to our authorities here in the United States, what they've done to the families is they've asked them for dental records. They've asked them, how can they identify the bodies? How do you want the bodies shipped home? Nobody in New Zealand is thinking that way. How did it change from positive thinking, not giving up, from the population not giving up to where we are here? It's administrative, and it has to do with the Department of State, and it has to do with John Kerry's organization. We don't know who in the organization. It's so big. We don't know who, but there's a policy that should be changed to put government resources into play to help us. The resources could be to advise and to assist the New Zealanders, the Rescue Coordination Center, and the New Zealand Air Force, Royal Air Force. It could also be that the United States could offer American resources and technology to help the New Zealanders find a ship that's lost in their sovereign waters. And that's what we're here to talk about today. We can give you a lot of detail. I can give you a lot of detail. There's a website called EV for EV Nemeth XX, and we're updating that website at least twice a day. And that gives you the latest, most current information about the search efforts. We've got TomNod, which is now a division of Digital Globe in Longmont, Colorado. They're expanding their business services so that these very sophisticated satellites can be made available to the general public. That's what TomNod does. You can go and see these images. We went from just a couple 10s and 20s and 30s of people, we went to 800 people, we went to 2,000 people on the web looking at these images. The last 2 days with the press release that we put out, the efforts are happening in the middle of the night. Well, that's the middle of the day in Australia. That's the middle of the day in New Zealand. So the people that are there are helping us Americans find our own. We also, once we find an image on the satellite, and we've got one that looks like a life raft, it really looks like a life raft, and we have some people, every one of us, none of us are paid, we're all volunteers. We've got quite a network of scientists that are helping us, that are connected with NASA, that are connected with the University of Colorado in Boulder, that are connected with Texas A&M, that are helping us. Every one of these people are putting in dedicated time after work hours to help us find the crew of the seven on the Niña. Most recent thing that's happened, and you'll get a copy of this, is we finally got our first letter from a congressman requesting some help that we asked for 6 weeks ago. It took 6 weeks to get somebody to write a letter, a formal letter with his signature, a congressman's signature, to get the information that we need. This congressman believes the crew of 7 is alive. He wouldn't have written the letter. So we've got more things that we want to do just like that. We have satellites that the NGA can task in the area. They can cover the entire Tasman Sea. It's a large area, but it's not much of a challenge for the NGA. They have that capability. For us to do this privately is going to take us months to do it privately. They can do it in days. We need visual air search with aircraft. We're tasking our own airplane out of Norfolk Island to search in this high priority area. We're actually searching where the New Zealand RCC did not search before. Now we've got their interest because we're searching where they didn't search. They've asked us for new information. If we can provide them with new information from satellite, new information from TomNod, new information from any of the air searches that we do, they will put their resources back in the air. They have not given up. Thank you.
We've been asked to have, if you folks could move up just a little bit here.
Do you want us on one side or the other?
No, in the center, just group together, as close this way as you can, horizontal. Vertically is okay, horizontal gets together.
We would be remiss in not getting a few words right now from the gentleman who founded Texas EquiSearch out of a tragedy in his own life and is our leader, Tim Miller.
I really don't want to be here. The only reason I'm here is because I did suffer the loss of a child my own self only 3 miles from here. Again, begged law enforcement, begged people to help, and got absolutely no help, none. 17 months later, Laura's body was found along with 3 other girls. 2 of them still unidentified, still not an arrest. I never gave up. I can promise y'all the day will come when there'll be an arrest because I never gave up. You know, I made a promise to Laura and to God I would never leave a family alone because I knew what alone was like. That's why I formed Texas EquiSearch. We've helped over 1,300 families. We've been in 38 states, 8 different countries, all volunteers. Everybody asks me, why don't we quit this search? Y'all are wasting your time. You're wasting your money. We have other missing families. We are working 6 other cases in 4 different states right now as we speak. You know why we're not going to quit this? Because EquiSearch doesn't quit. We don't quit. God has blessed us. As of last week, it was the 164th body that we had found and at least brought closure to families because we did not quit. We brought over 300 people home alive. Many would have been dead. We found a little 2.5-year-old boy in Llano, Texas that was dead when I found him and brought him back to life. We don't know how to quit. And you know what? I'm going to give a prime example why we're not going to quit this search now for these seven people. I think these 7 people are on that boat and they're surviving right now, and they're saying, we're not going to quit, so why would you? We have a reason why we're not going to quit. I want to introduce a man, John Glennie. John, would you please come here, please? Today's the first day I met John Glennie. Sorry if I'm emotional. John Glennie's boat went down kind of like in the same area. John Glennie never quit. 119 days later, he survived on his raft out there. And they're telling us to quit. We have proof with this man right here why we're not quitting. We got families that are begging us, don't quit. We are fighting our biggest fight that we can fight, and we need help. I think that we've got 7 more John Glennies out there that we can bring home safely. Like I said, very emotional day. We don't quit. God has blessed us. I'm a very, very small part of a huge world, people, and can't do anything on my own. But with the support we've had behind us, the people that believe in what we do, we've proven many, many miracles. And we think there's another miracle to prove as long as we don't quit. And y'all just please thank Laura Miller. She's the reason behind this. God bless y'all.
Who's next?
Okay. Are you ready for us?
John, you're not that shy, my friend. Come back here. This is living proof. This is living proof. This is a man. All right, fine. You're the boss, Tim.
I need someone to hold my hand. I'm not used to this sort of stuff. I'm not a public speaker, you know. As you can tell, if you're psychic, I'm not Texan either. I'm from New Zealand, and where my boat tipped upside down, it was in the same, it was off the coast of New Zealand, except it was in the roaring 40s, and it was in an impossible situation. There was no known reason why I could have ever come back. In fact, after I got back, they went through a marine inquiry because no one believed it.
But I'm alive.
Yeah.
John has the distinction, by the way, of having had a very glossy, lofty tribute to him printed as his obituary.
Yeah, I had a 2-page obituary in the big papers in New Zealand. Yeah, where I tipped my boat up was an impossible situation that I should never come back. It was a 5,000-mile trip down through the roaring 40s in the middle of winter, in the Great Southern Ocean to Chile. And even if I got to Chile, several years later, then you'd get caught in the current and go up to Galapagos. But that's the one, Humboldt Current. And the Great Southern Ocean is known as a marine desert. There's no planes go down there, there's no ships, no one goes down there. In fact, there's no fish either. So when I tipped my boat up, I realized that I was going to have to create a major miracle to get out of it. And I never had one doubt in that whole 4 months that I'd ever get out, which is, that's another story which I'll tell you about on Friday. I'll tell you about miracles. But what the Nina needs, because they are in another area, and they're in the variables. They're not in an impossible situation, and they don't need a miracle. All they really need is a miracle from us to look for them. That's all they need.
Well said. Well said.
God bless you. God bless you.
Let's meet some families. Let's meet some people who are living this ordeal themselves day after day. First among them, someone who has graced us with her presence. We are glad for her coming all the distance that she did to get here. Her name is Sue Wooten. Sue, will you want to come forward, please?
Hello. My son Matthew left on his travels actually 3.5 years ago. He's very aware of his carbon footprint, and he didn't want to fly anywhere. So he went by boat, by bus, by car, by train and by coach, all over America, and then to South America. And then he did quite a lot of sailing in that time. The last big trip that he did, he picked up a yacht from Tahiti to New Zealand. The yacht was half the size of the schooner Nina, and there were only 3 of them on board, and it took them 3 months to get there. They were becalmed a lot of the time. We didn't hear from him for weeks, and we'd get worried, and then there'd be an email come. Okay, Mum, I'm fine, I'm on this little island somewhere, and then they'd carry on. When he reached New Zealand, he bought himself a bike and cycled all around New Zealand, ending up in Apua, where he obviously met the Dick family and sent us an email saying, Mum, I'm going to be sailing on this fantastic schooner, the Nina. She's world class. She won the Fastnet race. She's actually the famous flagship of the New York Yacht Club for 20 years, I believe. And then he wrote another email saying, I'm a bit fed up because I've been upside down in the bilge for hours and hours trying to do something. I'm not quite sure. Somebody's hanging on to my legs. I believe that was Kyle. And my husband wrote back to him and said, what do you expect? This is, you're getting a free passage to Australia. You've got to work for it, so stop complaining. And that's what he did. Whilst he was in New Zealand, I believe he got there in January. It was my birthday in February, and he sent me this necklace, which is a famous carved jade. Sorry. And they all have a symbol, and this one means 2 lives joined together for eternity. He promised to be home for Christmas, so please help bring him home. Thank you, sorry.
Doesn't get easier. Laszlo Nemeth. Evie, an extraordinary PhD, who extraordinary in many ways, which is best expressed by Laszlo.
My earliest memories are of growing up on a sailboat, a Chinese junk in Florida. Then after that, my memories are flying to Europe on a prop plane, and then things like bicycling during the communist times from Budapest to the Greek islands with my mother, or traveling across the United States in a Volkswagen Bug with, I think it was 5 or 6 people, and one of them moving all their stuff. No matter what the adventure was, she was always up for it. She found a house at a garage sale, bought it, moved it, and lived in it with a lot of fixing. She never backed down from a challenge. In April, we were actually in New Zealand, and we found the Nina, or she dragged us over to it to visit it, and we had a happy hour on it. And, met the families, and Kyle was with us, and we were all looking at the boat, going, wow, this is a cool boat. And she's like, yeah, and I'm going to sail on it all the way over to Australia. But you're planning on going to Fiji? Yeah, but how often do I get a chance to ride on a boat like this? That was Evie. The other side of Evie was her grandchildren, Ziggy and Zukni. Mikey and I, being parents, never had time to teach him how to ride a bike. It was Evie that taught him how to ride a bike. It was Evie that taught him how to ski. It was Evie that would read every single Harry Potter to them, and anybody else that would listen. She actually had a really good voice for reading books. You know, people have asked me a lot, why do I think they're still alive? I think they're still alive because I know my mother. She's one tough cookie. A year ago, well, several years ago, our property burned in the mountains. And a year ago, she shows up from Fiji at sea level and spends an entire day with me at 7,500 feet, chainsawing, hauling logs, clearing the land. And that's a 73-year-old woman who wore me into the ground. I had to call it a day. So there is a lot of toughness, a lot of adventure, and, you know, I mean, they're still out there. I was on the boat. I looked at that boat. I did not see what some people have been reporting, that it was a decrepit boat. It was in very nice shape in April. Granted, I'm not a full-on marine surveyor, but it was in beautiful shape at that point in time. And that's all I got.
You know, sailors will tell you that boats have souls. And that boat had been around for a long time, but had been lovingly restored, cared for. She had a soul that matched these crew members and the people you see behind me here. Let's, Sally and Dwayne.
Hello, I'm Sally Davis, and this is my fiance, Dwayne Jackson. He's Kyle's father. We were asked to speak today, and one of the things that comes to mind is that everybody's asked us, how did Kyle from Bassett, Nebraska, end up on a boat in New Zealand? And I wanted to share a little bit with you. Kyle's good friend, Weston, is actually Evie's nephew. And Weston called Kyle and invited him to go to New Zealand with him and sail on Evie's boat, the Wonderland. And Kyle jumped at the chance. He's such an adventurer. He's a traveler. If something new comes, Kyle takes it head on. And while he was there, he called home quite often. They Skyped a few times. One of the reasons was that Kyle's maternal grandfather, the father of his mother, Amy Jackson, was ill. And unfortunately, he passed away while Kyle was in New Zealand. And he called home and asked, do I need to come home? I can cut my trip short. I don't need to go on the Nina. I can come be with family. And discussion was had with the family, and they decided that you need to stay. This is a trip that Pappy would have jumped on, as he had always had this need to go to Australia and was unable to make it. And in the end, what ended up happening is that Amy sent Kyle some of Pappy's cremains. He has them with him. And we need to continue this search so that not only do we find Kyle, but we finish Pappy's trip onto Australia. One of the things that Amy has shared with me and with the rest of the family is Kyle's motto. Every time that Kyle traveled somewhere, she would worry about him, and he always told her, don't worry, Mom, remember my motto is, not all who wander are lost. So it's become a statement of hope for the Jackson family. And I happened to be on eBay one day, and I found this little tile necklace. And right on it, it states, not all who wander are lost. So I quick purchased this, and I'm actually going to donate this necklace to be auctioned off tomorrow night at the benefit supper. It just seems the right thing to do, and we hope that you all continue to support this search. We have not given up. The family has hope, and we need you to have hope and make those calls. Call John Kerry, please. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Kyle was a survivor. He wasn't a great sailor. He'd done some sailing, but Kyle's been a survival all of his life. He knows how to stay alive. He knows how to fish. He knows how to fend for himself and keep people moods. He's a great kid, and he knows how to survive. That's why I know they're alive. Thank you.
Remember, it's not just these declarations of perseverance and solidarity that make a difference here. It's the technology. It's what things like these satellite images are showing us, as Ralph explained. There is reason beyond hope. There is technical evidence. And this is what we intend to make very clear to the people who will make the decisions about carrying on with this search. I beg your pardon? Okay, Robin and Ricky.
Thank you all for coming out today. We're Ricky and Robin Wright, and our daughter Danielle is on the Nina, and we do believe that all 7 crew are alive and they're adrift out in the waters. And with my family that stood behind me to continue the search after New Zealand suspended the searches on July the 5th. And that's when we were led to be in touch with Texas EcuSearch. Thank you, Shelley. And Texas EcuSearch started analyzing all the information, and we started the flights. We started raising funds, and we need more funds now. It's costs to do the private search about $15,000 every day to be able to search just a small portions of the water, 1% of the area that we need to search. And so we can't wait on the military Secretary of State, John Kerry. We can't wait. We have to continue to pursue, and we would invite them to come with us. But we're continuing to move on. We're forging like frontiersmen and to search for our Nina and our daughter and David and Rosemary and little David and Kyle and Matthew and Evie. We're going to find them.
We met David and Rosemary in Panama about 4 years ago, and we were just thrilled to see the Nina and to be on her and this beautiful sailing yacht that's just been all over the world. And David and Rosemary and their son, little David, they have friends all over the world because they have spent their lives on this boat. And we were thrilled when they invited Danielle to come and spend her whole summer. She had 2 weeks in New Zealand. She turned 19 there. They had a wonderful birthday party with her. and she was going to spend the rest of the summer in Australia. And then we were going to visit after they got there. And we bought her ticket. We never had any doubt that she was in the best capable hands, because we know who Captain David is, and we know his training and his experience. And now that we've met the other family members and we've heard about Evie and her courage and her strength, and Matthew and Kyle, and we just know that they are survivors and they are keeping each other up, and they're doing everything possible to stay alive. They're catching fish. It's raining a lot, okay? They have a lot of water, and maybe a turtle for dessert every now and then. So they're surviving, okay? They're doing everything they can. And we know how possible it is that they're drifting. We think that they lost their mast. We think that there's no way they could motor that far. They can't carry the fuel. So we think they're just drifting out there. There was 3 adults and 2 babies that were rescued recently, 91 days. The same exact scenario. Lost their mast and drifted until someone found them. The area in the Tasman where our crew are, I mean, they are really in the middle of nowhere. And we don't have any hope that they're just going to drift back to civilization anytime soon. Okay, it might be 3 or 4 months. And do we want to wait and let them drift back to shore? I mean, every day as a mother, I have to think about what it's like for my 100-pound daughter to be eating raw fish and water and surviving. And I know that she's not going to quit, and she knows that we're looking for her. But can she make it another 120 days out there? You know, probably not, okay? And this is our only child. And if it were your child out there, I'm sure you would be doing the same exact thing. You would not be giving up. You would be asking people, you would be begging people to help you. And we do hope that our government will come through. We hope that they will help us. But can we wait? No, we cannot wait. We have to do everything in our power right now to raise the money and pay these pilots to search, because it's not going to be a fun thing to finally find them and have a few members that don't make it, okay? And that's the reality. If they're in a life raft, they could be sick, they could be injured, and they could be in very dire circumstances right now. We need your help.
And they can survive in a life raft. Steve Callahan, who we've talked with and consulted with, he survived 76 days on a life raft. And there are ways to be able to survive on life rafts. And we believe that if they are on a life raft, that they are still alive and kicking and paddling their way back to land. Please help us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is about the makeup of the human spirit. It goes beyond organizations, it goes beyond desks, it goes beyond decision makers. It goes to our will, our understanding of who we are and what we are determined to do. There is evidence that says, look more. That's what we want to do. To do that, we're going to need help from people. We're going to need money. Texas EquiSearch needs to be replenishing its coffers that are pretty much exhausted by all of this effort. And that's a task we hope that everybody watching will take on.